When you picture a Viking, what comes to mind? Chances are it involves a horned helmet, a ferocious beard, and a warrior charging off a longship. While that makes for a great movie character, the horned helmet is a complete myth, and the reality of the people we call Vikings was far more complex than just raiding and pillaging. Behind the axe and the sail lay a profound spiritual world, a faith as wild and unforgiving as the Scandinavian landscapes that birthed it. Welcome to 10-Minute History. I'm your host, Jake Sullivan, and today we're diving deep into the lost religion of the Norse people. This wasn't a religion of holy books and rigid dogma. It was a living, breathing part of daily life, a faith that explained the creation of the world from the corpse of a giant, that saw the cosmos as a great tree connecting 9 distinct realms, and that prepared its followers for an apocalyptic final battle where even the gods were fated to die. But how do we know any of this? The Vikings were a largely oral society, singing their myths in smoky longhouses. Most of what we know was written down hundreds of years later, in the 12th and 13th centuries, by Christians like the famous Icelandic author, Snorri Sturluson. These writers were trying to preserve their ancestral heritage, but they were also looking at it through a Christian lens, sometimes reframing the powerful gods as ancient human kings who were mistakenly worshipped. So historians have to piece the story together like archaeologists, using these filtered literary sources, biased reports from outsiders, and the silent testimony of rune stones, grave goods, and even the names of places on the map. And the world they've reconstructed is absolutely breathtaking. At the very center of the Norse cosmos stood Yggdrasil, the immense, evergreen world tree. Its branches stretched over 9 worlds, and its roots dug deep into different realms. This tree was the axis of all reality, but it was in a constant state of suffering. A monstrous dragon named Nidhogger gnawed at its roots, while a squirrel named Ratatoskr scurried up and down the trunk, ferrying insults between the dragon below and a great eagle perched at the very top. This constant strife was built into the very fabric of their universe. Yggdrasil connected the 9 worlds, a complex cosmic geography. At the top was Asgard, the fortified home of the main tribe of gods, the Aesir, connected to our world by a shimmering rainbow bridge called Bifrost. In the middle was our world, Midgard, the realm of humanity. And around and below were other realms, like Jotunheim, the wild land of the giants, and Svartalfheim, the underground domain of the master craftsman dwarves. There was also Hel, the gloomy afterlife for those who didn't die in battle, a place ruled by Loki's half-dead, half-living daughter of the same name. This wasn't a place of fire and brimstone punishment, just a cold, diminished existence. The Norse creation story itself is a tale of brutal, violent genesis. In the beginning, there was only a great void between a realm of fire and a realm of ice. Where they met, the ice melted, and from the drips, the first being, a giant named Ymir, was born. From the ice also emerged a cosmic cow, who licked the salty ice blocks and uncovered the first of the gods. Eventually, the gods, led by the famous Odin and his 2 brothers, rose up and killed the giant Ymir. And in an act of cosmic butchery, they built our world from his corpse. His flesh became the earth. His blood became the oceans. His bones became the mountains, and his skull was raised up to become the sky. Finally, the gods found 2 pieces of driftwood on a seashore, an ash and an elm, and gave them life, creating the first humans, Ask and Embla. The pantheon that ruled this world was a sprawling, chaotic, and intensely human-like family, full of rivalries, flaws, and virtues. They were led by the chief of the Aesir, Odin, the Allfather. Odin is one of the most complex gods you'll ever encounter. He was the god of war and death, but also of wisdom, poetry, and magic. He is instantly recognizable as the one-eyed god, having sacrificed his eye for a drink from a well whose waters contained all wisdom. He was a relentless seeker of knowledge, willing to pay any price. In one myth, he even hanged himself from the world tree Yggdrasil for 9 nights, wounded with a spear, in a sacrificial ritual to himself, just to win the knowledge of the runes. He's often accompanied by his 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, or Thought and Memory, who fly across the world each day and report everything they've seen back to him. If Odin was the god of kings and poets, Thor was the god of the common man. He was the son of Odin, a straightforward, hot-tempered, and tireless protector of humanity. He was the god of thunder, and his main job was to defend both Asgard and Midgard from the destructive giants. His greatest weapon was his hammer, Mjolnir, which would always return to his hand after being thrown. His popularity is undeniable. Thousands of Mjolnir pendants have been found in Viking graves, worn as amulets of protection. While Thor solved problems with brute force, the gods had another, more slippery asset, Loki. Loki wasn't exactly a god or a giant, but something in between. He was the trickster, the agent of chaos, and a master shapeshifter who could change his form and even his gender at will. His cunning intelligence was used to both help and harm the gods. In many stories, Loki causes a terrible problem through his mischief, and is then forced to use his wits to fix it. But his character darkens over time, culminating in him engineering the death of the beloved god Baldur, an event which seals his fate as the gods' ultimate enemy. The Norse pantheon also included incredibly powerful goddesses. The most prominent was Freyja, a goddess of the Vanir tribe who came to live with the Aesir after a primeval war. Freyja's domains were vast and sometimes contradictory. She was the goddess of love, beauty, and sex, but also of war, death, and a powerful form of magic called Seder. In fact, she was on equal footing with Odin when it came to the souls of warriors. Half of all warriors slain in battle went to Odin's hall, Valhalla. The other half were chosen by Freyja to live with her in her realm, Folkvangr. These gods weren't worshipped as perfect moral beings. The relationship was transactional, based on the core principle of a gift for a gift. The central ritual was the blot, a sacrificial feast. Vikings would sacrifice animals, often horses or boars, and sprinkle the blood on altars and on themselves, an act to strengthen the gods. They weren't doing this out of fear. They were feeding the gods to invigorate them, and in return, they expected gifts, victory, a good harvest, or safe travels. It was a relationship of mutual obligation. This brings us to one of the most entertaining and revealing myths, which perfectly illustrates the Viking worldview, particularly the character of Thor. The story, from a poem called the Thrymskvida, is a divine comedy. One morning, Thor wakes up to find his hammer, Mjolnir, is gone. This is a catastrophe. Without the hammer, Asgard is defenseless. Loki discovers that a giant named Thrymr has stolen it and hidden it deep underground. Thrymr's demand for its return is simple. He wants the beautiful goddess Freyja as his bride. When the gods tell Freyja, she erupts in such a rage that her famous necklace Brisingamen shatters. There's no way she's marrying a giant. With the gods in a panic, it's Loki who comes up with a plan. A brilliant, ridiculous plan. He tells Thor that he, Thor, must dress up as Freyja and go to the wedding himself. Thor is horrified, protesting that everyone will call him unmanly, but he has no choice. So the mighty god of thunder is squeezed into a bridal gown adorned with Freyja's necklace, has 2 large stones stuffed down his chest, and his face is covered with a veil. Loki goes with him, disguised as his handmaiden. At the wedding feast, Thor's disguise is almost blown immediately. He eats an entire ox, 8 whole salmon, and drinks 3 barrels of mead. The suspicious giant Thrymr asks, "Why does my bride have such an appetite?" The quick-thinking Loki, as the handmaiden, explains that Freyja has been so excited to marry him that she hasn't eaten in 8 days. Later, when Thrymr lifts the veil for a kiss, he leaps back in terror from the bride's fiery eyes. Again, Loki explains it's just from her sleepless nights of anticipation. Finally, the moment arrives. To sanctify the wedding, the stolen hammer Mjolnir is brought out and placed in the bride's lap. The second it touches him, Thor grabs his hammer, throws off the disguise, and proceeds to smash the skulls of every giant in the hall. The story is hilarious, but it reinforces the absolute importance of Thor as the protector of order. But even Thor's might couldn't stop what was fated to happen. Central to the entire Norse worldview was the prophecy of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. This wasn't just a story, It was an inescapable destiny that even Odin knew was coming. It begins with the death of the innocent god Balder, which triggers a period of cosmic decay. This is followed by the Fimbulvetri, the mighty winter, 3 brutal winters in a row with no summer, leading to a complete breakdown of society where all moral bonds dissolve. Then, the final battle begins. Loki breaks his bonds. The great wolf Fenrir shatters his magical chains. The world serpent Jormungandr rises from the sea, poisoning the air and water. Armies of giants and the dead from hell march on Asgard. Heimdallr, the watchman of the gods, sounds his great horn, and the gods and the souls of human champions from Valhalla march out to meet their doom. The battle is a series of fated duels. Odin fights the wolf Fenrir and is swallowed whole. Thor fights his ancient nemesis, the Midgard serpent. He kills the beast but is sprayed with so much venom that he staggers 9 paces and dies. The trickster Loki and the watchman Heimdallr kill each other. Finally, the fire giant Surtur engulfs the world in flames. The sun turns black, and the earth sinks into the sea. But this isn't the absolute end. It's a cosmic reset. After the destruction, a new, green world emerges from the water. A handful of gods survive, including Odin's and Thor's sons. Most importantly, the innocent Balder returns from the dead, a symbol of reconciliation. 2 humans, Lif and Lifthrasir, who hid in the World Tree, emerge to repopulate the new Earth. The story of Ragnarok perfectly captures the Viking ethos. The gods knew their doom was coming, and they couldn't stop it. What mattered wasn't escaping your fate, but facing it with courage. The glory was in the struggle, not the outcome. The formal worship of these gods ended with the Christianization of Scandinavia, a long and complex process that defined the end of the Viking Age around the 11th century. Kings like Harald Bluetooth in Denmark and the 2 Olafs in Norway adopted the new faith for political and economic reasons, and the cross slowly replaced the hammer. Yet, the legacy of this ancient religion is all around us. 4 of the 7 days in the English week are named for Norse gods. Tuesday is Tyr's Day. Wednesday is Woden's Day, the Anglo-Saxon name for Odin. Thursday is Thor's Day. And Friday is for Frigg, Odin's wife, or possibly Freya. In the 20th and 21st centuries, this fascination has exploded. The myths formed a cornerstone for fantasy literature, with authors like J.R.R. Tolkien borrowing heavily from them for The Lord of the Rings. And of course, Marvel Comics transformed Thor, Loki, and Odin into cosmic superheroes, making them global icons through the blockbuster movies. The old faith has even been reborn as a modern religion known as Asatru or heathenry, officially recognized in Iceland and other Scandinavian countries. The religion of the Vikings was a worldview that embraced complexity, where gods could be flawed, where chaos was a necessary part of existence, and where fate was inescapable. It reminds us that the ultimate virtue wasn't in avoiding doom, but in charging towards it, sword in hand, ready to carve a name for oneself that would outlive the end of the world. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know down in the comments below. If you found this interesting or learned something new, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to 10-Minute History for more deep dives. Thanks for listening.